Are you ready?
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 Are you ready to forget your family and your job? World Cup, oh whoa. Football round the clock. Football round the clock. Football round the clock. World Cup, oh whoa. Football round the clock. Oh, oh, oh.
Hello, welcome to Football Around the Clock, episode 2. I'm your host, Derek Pyle. Today I'm joined by our analyst, Ray Pyle, and also our Bundesliga analyst, Charles Pyle, and La Liga analyst, David Kramer. Today we'll be going over the subjects on the League Cup action from during this week and talking about the league tables and some dramatic action in the Serie A Italian league, and then talking about the Champions League game coming up in the next couple of days. So to kick it right off, we're going to go straight into the League Cup games that happened this last week. I want to first talk about the FA Cup in the Premier League. So the first game I want to talk about is the Tottenham versus Manchester United game. So Ray, how do you think Manchester United took advantage of that momentum of the Alexis Sanchez goal?
Well, I think Spurs honestly were thinking to themselves that it's happening over again. You know, last year they lost in a similar place in the FA Cup semifinal. Much of the criticism against Pochettino has been the lack of silverware that he has brought to Spurs, even though they have a good style of play, an attractive style of play. There hasn't been any result as far as trophy goes. And even though Jose Mourinho has received some criticism since being at Man United, he's been able to hang his hat on the trophies he's been able to bring from the Europa League last year and several other trophies. And so going into this game, much of the pressure was on Spurs to finally break through and reach FA Cup final with the chance at silverware. However, it seemed like the wind was taken out of them after that equalizer, and from the second half on, Man United had complete control of the game. And as a result, this is the 8th FA Cup semifinal that Spurs have lost since 1991. So quite disappointing for them.
Yeah, it's definitely really disappointing. And I would say also surprising, because going into this game, everybody's thinking, Harry Kane's back. They got Dele Alli, Christensen, they're normal guys, and they're coming and they're going to dominate Man U, or at least, be a competition for Manchester United. But after that first Alexis Sanchez goal, it looked like Tottenham just totally checked out of the game. Man U took over, and then it just went from there.
It seems like Jose Mourinho kind of decided to go for a more hectic style of play, which isn't really his normal. They played good defense, but it was a little hectic for sure. And I don't know if you heard Dele Alli's comments at the end, but he was distraught. And I think that really shows how much Pochettino and his team had invested in this game, because they almost couldn't handle losing. They didn't play as hard as they could, but they couldn't handle losing. So
yeah, and also Pochettino had some controversial comments after the game too, kind of separating himself from the club and himself saying in the future, almost saying, if they go on without him or with me. And so it's pretty interesting from a Tottenham perspective what this loss will do to them in the summer transfer window, if Pochettino will stay or he'll bail to other offers, and we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's a definite concern for Tottenham Hotspurs. I also want to bring up Harry Kane. He was almost invisible in this game. He had almost no effect. And that was my real disappointment for this Tottenham Manchester United game. That Harry Kane, is coming off his injury and trying to build up to the World Cup, show the world that he's, fit to be on this England team, and then has this performance and totally just shocks everybody watching this FA Cup tie. So I want to switch it up, and we're going to go to the Chelsea Southampton FA Cup tie. This game was really cut and dry. Chelsea dominated the game, and scoring 2 goals with both the strikers actually from Chelsea scoring both the goals. Olivier Giroud scoring his first FA Cup goal for Chelsea, and then Morata coming on as a substitution within, I don't know, however minutes of being substituted and getting getting the cross from Azpilicueta from that right side and getting that header into the goal, which has been really effective all season long, until Morata had that injury, and then it kind of went a little downhill from there, and Chelsea had to pick up an extra striker. But Ray, how does this loss affect Southampton's morale in the Premier League?
Well, I think their morale was already pretty low, being third in the relegation zone. They haven't been playing well all season, and so it was quite the surprise that they made it this far in the FA Cup. They kind of got a little bit of a lucky draw with Wigan upsetting Manchester City and then facing Wigan in the quarters, and were able to win that. But nobody expected them to do anything in this game against Chelsea, really, and it certainly looks like they'll be heading down to the Championship once the season's done, with a decent gap between them and staying in the Premier League.
Yeah, that gap is definitely closing pretty fast for Southampton. So the relegation table for Premier League is looking pretty set. There might be some slim chance of maybe Southampton getting out of there, or even Stoke City getting out of there, but the chances are very slim. I want to shift our view over to Chelsea in the Premier League. They're 5 points out from 4th place Tottenham Hotspurs, and it doesn't really seem that Chelsea has it in them to catch up to Tottenham. David, do you think Chelsea could have a chance to catching up to Tottenham?
That's a great question. I think that Tottenham has a great chance to fall, so therefore Chelsea has a great chance to catch up. I am a Tottenham fan, so I don't want them to go Spursy, but it's still a word. It still applies to them, and they need to get over that hump. That was the reason that Pochettino was brought in, and like Ray said, if they can't get over these humps, Pochettino might feel like he just needs to leave and move on, and that would be an incredible loss for the Spurs. So it doesn't look like Chelsea has it, but maybe Tottenham will fall. This is a devastating blow to them. They wanted to win so badly.
That's very true. It definitely looks like that. Pochettino actually wants to leave Tottenham and give some other manager a chance to take a swipe at maybe getting some silverware for Tottenham. Let's switch it up to across the pond into Germany. We're going to talk about the DFB Polka Cup a little bit. Charles, what was the feeling going into this Bayern versus Bayern Leverkusen game?
Yeah, typical Bayern. They knew this was theirs. They knew they're going to another DFB Pokal final. They weren't worried. The game was supposed to be this big game. Leverkusen just couldn't deal with Bayern. Bayern came out from the beginning, from the get-go. I mean, they slaughtered him 6-2. Mueller had a hat trick. Lewandowski had a brace. There's not much to say. It was a Bayern whitewash once again, just walking their way into the Pokal final.
Mm-hmm. How was that hat trick significant for Mueller? Do you think that maybe boosted his his confidence and maybe his job security for Bayern?
Oh, there was never any job security. That's all media stuff. Mueller's the face of Bayern Munich. He's not going anywhere. He's that's kind of just a ridiculous statement from the media. He's Bayern Munich. But the brace, he's been on fire lately. Under Heinkes, it kind of rejuvenated his career where he kind of fell off under Pep Guardiola. I don't know if it was Pep's system or what, but he's in the spaces now again like he used to be. Timing is right, and he's been scoring a lot of goals. So this is really he's back to normal. He's the Mueller of old.
Yeah, I'd have to say that in the first half, the game was a lot closer. Bayer Leverkusen's been in pretty good form in league play, and I believe it was 2-1 at halftime. And Leverkusen had some chances that they kind of debacled. It was in the second half when Bayern really flexed their muscles and extended the lead and, showed why they're the kings of Germany consistently. But in the first half, Bayer Leverkusen had some moments that had the Bayern defense on its heels, and but overall, yeah, Bayern was just the better team.
So I'm going to bring it to the Frankfurt-Schalke game. This is probably the real surprise in German football this last week, of Frankfurt upsetting Schalke 1-0 away to Schalke. Charles, how big was this win for Frankfurt in the Bundesliga?
Oh, this was big for Frankfurt because they've been sliding the last month in the Bundesliga. I think they've only had one win in the last 4 games. They've had, I think, 3 losses or 5 games. 3 losses, 1 draw, and now a win in the Bundesliga. So this is big for them. They're trying to keep themselves united, with the whole Kovac moving to Bayern thing. But this was an exciting game. Pretty much Schalke seemed like, to me, they dominated most of the game. They had what they thought was a goal, but it was called back. And then in the 75th minute, Luka Jovic scored for Frankfurt. Schalke, they had their chances. Gelson Fernandez, he was subbed out for Omar Mascaro in the 78th. And then in the 2 minutes later, in the 81st, Gelson Fernandez got a red card. So Schalke, Frankfurt was a man down, so Schalke had their opportunities, but it just didn't work out for them.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was an evenly matched game. Luka Jovic in the 75th minute had the nice, I don't know how you describe it, back heel donkey kick off a corner into the net. That was pretty sweet. Schalke had a ton of fouls in this game, so it was pretty physical. And, quite the shock that Frankfurt went through, and it sets up a unique matchup with Kovac, the future Bayern manager, to face them in the DFB Cup final. So that will be a pretty unique and entertaining matchup. But Frankfurt, again, hasn't been really doing well in the league, and so I'm not sure how close that game's going to be when it comes down to it, but it'll definitely be unique.
Charles, what do you think of the game coming up with Bayern versus Frankfurt?
I think this is going to be a great game. Obviously, Bayern most likely will win this, but to have that Heinkes versus Kovac, the old coach versus the new coach coming in, and Frankfurt, it doesn't matter how they do in the league, they always seem to play Bayern tough. Last time Bayern only beat them 1-0. And the scores are always low like that between Bayern and Frankfurt. Frankfurt never gets blown out by Bayern. It's always a 2-1, 1-0, something like that. So I with Kovac in his hard, aggressive style, he'll put pressure on Bayern. The score will probably be low. It's not going to be blowout like we saw against Leverkusen. I think it'll be a 2-1, 1-0, similar to what they usually play. And you got to remember this: Frankfurt and Bayern are going to play each other twice in the next four games for Frankfurt, 6 games for Bayern.
Mm-hmm.
They got a league game, and then they got the DFB Pokal final.
Let's migrate south and go to Spain, to the Copa del Rey Cup. David, how important was this game to Barcelona after losing to Roma in the Champions League?
This, like you said, was an incredibly important game for Barcelona. And you'd think that it would be just as important for Sevilla because they just went out of the Champions League as well. But Barcelona clearly stepped up their game and really wanted to win this, while on the other hand, Sevilla did not really seem to care. In the game, 2 narratives. There's the narrative that you just talked about. Barcelona wanted it more. They were more prepared. And then there's the second narrative of Barcelona wasn't really playing Barcelona style. I saw a lot of counterattacking from Barcelona and a lot of long ball. It didn't seem to be their normal style. Also, Sevilla didn't really have a finishing product, so they didn't track on goals. I don't know. With the game was more important for Barcelona, but it was an interesting game. Let's just put it at that.
Ray, what do you have for this cup tie?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting because not too long ago these two teams played and Sevilla was up 2-0 in that game and Barcelona was able to come from behind and squeak it out at the end to tie it 2-2. But since then they've had the Champions League, which Sevilla honestly played Bayern pretty tough, and we all obviously know that Barcelona was upset by Roma. So coming into this game, yeah, I think Barcelona was the obvious favorite, and as David said, their will and their style of play just overwhelmed Sevilla, and they didn't have an answer for it. And I think a lot of it too, this was Andres Iniesta's last Copa del Rey game, and so I know it was big for him and for the Barcelona team to send him out on top. And I shows that it was spectacular watching him play. Jordi Alba had a filthy back heel to Messi, who put it away for the 3rd goal, and they were just overall dominant and pretty attractive to watch. So well done to Barcelona.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything you're saying. I do think it interesting, though, that their creativity for the 1st and the 3rd goal came on counterattacks, and that they needed that to get going. That's not the normal Barcelona. And so I don't know if it's Valverde, who by the way, is thinking about leaving, or if it's just how they've morphed as they've gotten older, kind of like how Cristiano Ronaldo has changed into a striker. Maybe Barcelona, as they've gotten older, has needed to change their style. But I would also like to touch on what you said, Ray. Andres Iniesta, fantastic. This is his and Messi's 31st title at Barcelona. That's incredible. The statistics on that are just unbelievable. And then he's 33 years old, though. They're still relying on him. Absolutely, he's going to be gone at the end of the season, and it's a great way to send him out. But Barcelona shouldn't be relying on a 33-year-old Iniesta, even if he is one of the greatest players of all time. So I'm a little disappointed in Barcelona in some ways, but congrats on Iniesta. We can't take anything away from him. Give him his dues, his 31st title at Barcelona. What a career he has had.
We're going to wrap the League Cup up with some thoughts from everybody going into the next rounds and finals of these League Cups besides Spain, with Spain already being done in Barcelona, reigning champions of the Copa del Rey. Let's first turn to Ray. What do you think of the Manchester United-Chelsea game coming up for the final in Wembley?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm not sure who would be the favorite in that. I think Manchester United is definitely in a better form. Chelsea's been inconsistent. everybody knows that Conte, he's gone at the end of the season regardless of what happened. So there's a question of motivation with the Chelsea team going into the final. So I definitely think Manchester United would be the favorite in this matchup.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's a question of motivation in Chelsea. Why do you think that? Is just mainly because Conte's leaving, or is there other factors into that?
Yeah, I think just the whole turmoil around the club that's kind of been there all season and has attributed to their lackluster play, not the same team that were champions last year, and so I think the motivation aspect, but just not being consistent enough and having faith in each other and their coach as a team to be able to pull this off.
I don't even think it's just Chelsea's lack of motivation. I also think it's Jose Mourinho's desire. It's just the contrast. Jose Mourinho wants to win something so badly, while Chelsea, it doesn't seem like they care. They won last year. They're fine. Jose Mourinho, on the other hand, if he doesn't win something every year, he hates his life. So he needs to win something to be a happy little Mourinho again.
Yeah, I would agree on the Jose Mourinho aspect that he needs silverware every year to deem himself, successful. But I don't know, being a Chelsea fan, the fans' thought process around this FA Cup final on the Chelsea perspective is that we need this silverware to be successful this season, and also to get in the top four. So if we lose this final and place fifth, or even don't even make Europa and place sixth, then I think there's going to be a lot of changes coming to Chelsea besides Conte leaving. Ray, any more thoughts on that?
Well, I think even if Chelsea wins the FA Cup, but they don't finish in the top four, the season's considered a failure. And so because they won't be in the Champions League next year. And so just with everything surrounding Conte and his desire to leave, and I just don't see how Chelsea will be able to come together. And about Mourinho, at a club like Manchester United, you're expected to compete for titles and trophies. That's the expectation of the club. And so when you don't, then, there's always that question about job security that always follows the manager. And so, like last year, Manchester United finishing fifth was unacceptable, but Mourinho was able to make up for that by winning the Europa League that enabled them to qualify for the Champions League this year, as well as winning a couple other trophies. And so this year they've improved, Manchester United being in second, and again in the FA Cup final. I'm not sure they would even look at that as a success. Obviously, if they win, that's another trophy. But their goal is to compete for titles. So there's improvement, but they're not where they want to be either.
All right, now wrap up our League Cup finals for this week. Those are coming up in the next couple weeks, so be sure to look out for those. We're going to move into League Talk. Bring it around first to the La Liga. Any insights from the Liga this week? Any major changes, transfer news, anything like that?
Well, first of all, Atletico Madrid tied Real Betis. And so that's good for Betis, bad for Atletico, bad for the title, the championship hunt. Barcelona basically is going to win this. It seems like they're playing against, I think, Deportivo de La Coruña, and I don't see how they're going to at least not get a tie. So there's a high chance that they're going to just win the title next week, no matter what happens. So my second thought has to do with the what I kind of touched it on last week, is that I think that too many teams this year are focused on the next game, that they're having trouble handling two leagues. So I think the reason that Atleti tied Betis is because they were looking ahead to their Europa League clash this week with Arsenal. And I'm not exactly sure if it's just too many teams are relying on the same core set of players or what, but it seems like they can't handle two leagues. They can't handle the Champions League or the Europa League and the domestic league. And so I'm really disappointed in Atleti. Clearly, I'm happy for Betis, but other than that, why are you not beating Betis? Is it because you're looking ahead to Arsenal? I don't know.
Yeah, going off what you said about the clubs having struggles when they're in two competitions, if you look at, like, for example, like the Champions League final, only Bayern Munich's the only team that's champions in their league. You have Real Madrid, who's in third, Liverpool, who's in third, and Roma, who's battling and in third there too. So, I think it's definitely tough to balance with the teams. And so, I don't know, maybe going back to, like, Chelsea for Derek, maybe that was a reason for possible struggles too, because in the previous year before, they weren't in the Champions League when they won the championship last year. So it's an interesting point to make.
David, also, I want to touch a little bit on the relegation zone in La Liga. So this last week, Malaga was relegated. Am I correct?
Yeah, and it's a very sad thing. I brought this up last week that Malaga was probably close to relegation, but they're relegated now, technically. And just as a team that has had so much history, so much recent success, just recently they were doing great in I think it was the Champions League with Isco at their helm, and now they're relegated, and we'll see if they can come back. The other teams, Deportivo, like I said, that's playing Barcelona, they're basically relegated. Las Palmas is for sure relegated too soon. So I think that this is pretty done and dusted in La Liga. The relegation zone is just down there. They're pretty far down there. They're really bad. When they're bad, right?
Sad scenes there around Malaga, and because of those relegation events happening, is there going to be maybe some transfers from those relegated teams or throughout the league?
Yeah, there's definitely some teams there, and Spain has a different transfer policy than England. Spain has a transfer policy where if you drop down, then you automatically can get transferred. So, for example, Las Palmas has some quality players. They're going to get relegated, and there's going to be definitely some teams picking off some of these players. Speaking of relegation, or of transfers, actually, there's some big transfers that are going on. I already mentioned Iniesta, that he was probably his last season at Barcelona. Well, for sure his last season. He's probably going to China. China has expressed interest in him. And even though they said that they weren't going to pay big money payouts for players anymore, Iniesta is probably going to go to China for a big money. Secondly, everyone has been kind of expecting Neymar to go to Real Madrid. I heard some news recently that PSG is saying that Neymar does not have a 300 million euro release clause, kind of like everyone's insinuating. It's a little ridiculous. It's a pretty high number, but they're saying he doesn't have it, and so Real Madrid can't pay that much money to get him, or maybe they can. If you pay enough money, you can get anyone. That's what we've learned recently.
Concern in recent football that you can just have this pointless buyout clause that any big club can go in, spend a crap ton of money, and players like Neymar transfer practically like every season to a different club until that player feels like he's at the best club, or like he feels like he's welcomed or treated fairly or whatever. But let's open this up to everybody. Charles, what are your thoughts about like buyout clauses and that affecting football?
It's the name of the game nowadays. I don't like it. I don't like. I'm old school. I don't like the big money in football nowadays or any sport nowadays. The rich are getting richer and the smaller teams are struggling because of it. You're getting less and less competition in all the leagues because of it. The same teams are going to dominate almost every year in the Champions League because they can pay out. So it's the name of the game, but I'm against it. And players like Neymar, who I hope he's not going to turn out to be one of these mercenary type players, or a year here, a year there, just to win a trophy. Hopefully he settles on a team where he fits and he can win with. But with a lot of your big name players, that sounds like that's the way things are going, and that's kind of disappointing to me.
Yeah, well, I think Neymar's probably already turned into a little bit of a mercenary going to PSG for that much. And then all the turmoil that he's kind of had there with, he got injured, but he wouldn't return to France to celebrate their championship. And so he hasn't really treated PSG like he has with Barcelona, like he did with Barcelona. So,
oh yeah, definitely.
PSG's pretty frustrated with that, and then it came out that Dani Alves said that he would go back to Barcelona in a heartbeat. So a lot of disrespect towards PSG, and but I mean they're the ones spending the big bucks, but they don't have any results for that. So I definitely, even though you spend a lot of money, it definitely depends on the type of club you are, and so
yeah, definitely. He also has some clashes with Cavani at the beginning of the season of playing for that striker position, trying to get goals and such. David, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, the question is, if he is a mercenary, then why do Real Madrid want him? We know why he went to PSG. He was there for Brazil and for money. He was there because half the Brazilian national team was there, and he was there to make tons of money. So if Real Madrid want him, is it going to work out? Is he going to leave again real quickly? Is he going to be happy? I don't think so. I'm not of that opinion. If he can't survive where he's getting paid as much as he is at PSG in a team that is literally focused around him, then he's not going to survive at Real Madrid. Unless Cristiano Ronaldo goes, or unless they radically change things, because Zinedine Zidane will not put up with that kind of crap.
Yeah, definitely not. So let's switch our leagues up and go a little north to the Bundesliga. Charles, with Bayern already clinching the Bundesliga title, where is the main race happening for the Bundesliga table? Is it in the 3-4 positions, or battling for Champions League, or what's going on there?
There's a couple of races going on right now. Second, third, fourth place. There's a battle for Europe from second place all the way down to seventh place, where Frankfurt's sitting right now. Frankfurt was in the fourth spot and dropped all the way to seventh due to those losses I mentioned earlier. Little shocker, Schalke drew to Köln 1-1 over the weekend. And then Frankfurt, again, they lost 3-0 to Hertha Berlin. Hoffenheim destroyed RB Leipzig, and that was kind of a shocker, 5-2. And Hoffenheim moved up to fifth place into Europa Cup spot. Leipzig dropped to sixth. They're still in the Europa Cup spot. And Frankfurt is only 1 point behind them in seventh. So there's a big race for Europe there. Hoffenheim has the easiest schedule of the three, so I think they should solidify a European spot. Leipzig is the next easiest schedule, and then Frankfurt has the most difficult schedule. So I don't see how Frankfurt can get in there unless there's an upset that happens from Leipzig or something. Because Prince Boateng, He's injured. He's out for the season, so that's one of their main offense. They could replace him with DaCosta or Sebastian Haller, but it's still those are big shoes to fill. I just don't see how Frankfurt can get in there. Then the next big race is.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to mention you're talking a lot about Europe and how Bundesliga has a couple Europa League spots, and then also obviously a couple of Champions League spots. So I was just thinking, how important are those Europa League spots to the Bundesliga?
Oh, they're very important. I mean, especially for the teams, probably more than the Bundesliga. It's a big payout. Not as big as Champions League, but it is Europe. It's a big payout. So the teams that can get in, that's extra money for spending on transfers and helping their club out. Another thing I forgot to mention was Dortmund absolutely destroyed Bayer Leverkusen 4-0 over the weekend, and they flip-flop places. Dortmund moved up into third, Bayer Leverkusen dropped to fourth. And it's kind of interesting. I don't know what's going on with Bayer Leverkusen. They have all the talent in the world. They got destroyed twice by Bayern, and now they got destroyed by Dortmund also. So they're kind of on a slide. But where the points are, they should be safe in a Champions League spot for next year. And then Dortmund also, a little bit of news. Everybody was wondering who would replace Batshuayi when his injury. Well, you got a young Englishman, Jadon Sancho, and he ended up scoring his first goal over the weekend, and he's also the youngest Englishman to score a goal in the Bundesliga since coming on. So that's awesome.
Yeah, he definitely hit the headlines in England.
Yeah, and then
the
other
Go ahead, Charles.
The other race going on is at the bottom. Köln is pretty much already relegated. Mathematically, they're still alive, but 3 games left. I think after this weekend, if they lose this weekend, they're done. Hamburg still has a shot. They're 5 points behind Freiburg with 3 games left. But Freiburg, Mainz, and Wolfsburg are all tied with 30 points. So really the battle is at the playoff or the relegation playoff spot between Wolfsburg, Mainz, and Freiburg. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to go to Ray. What are your thoughts on the Bundesliga, Ray?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Borussia Mönchengladbach's been a big disappointment this year. Usually they're up there in a Champions League spot. But this year, yeah, they've been a massive disappointment. At 8th in the table right now, and probably not even going to make a Europa League spot. And when we were talking about the difficulty of playing 2 competitions in Leipzig, our Red Bull Leipzig's another example of that, finishing 2nd in their first year in the Bundesliga last year, making it to the Champions League. This year they didn't make it out of the group in the Champions League, but then they got sent down to Europa League and made it to the quarterfinals. But as far as the league play goes, they're sitting in the last Europa League spot in 6th. And so they've kind of been a disappointment and struggling there as well. And yeah, as far as the relegation goes, yeah, you got Mainz, Wolfsburg, and Freiburg all tied in points. So that'll be a heck of a battle for that final relegation spot. The relegation playoff spot. So.
A lot of action happening in the Bundesliga, fighting for those relegation and playoff relegation spots, and also for those European spots, which have a huge effect in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, and with the relegation fight, the intriguing story there again, Freiburg sitting in that 16th spot with 30 points. It's anybody's game between Freiburg, Mainz, and Wolfsburg with 3 games left who's going to be in that promotion playoff. But in 2 Bundesliga, Nuremberg defeated Holstein Kiel today, which almost solidifies them automatic promotion with Fortuna Düsseldorf, and Holstein Kiel would be in that promotion playoff against the number 16 in in the Bundesliga. So that'll be interesting to keep track of that also.
Thank you for the update and news on the Bundesliga trials. We're going to switch shortly and go to Serie A, the Italian league. This week was the Juve versus Napoli game. In this game, Juve was expected to win. Honestly, Juve didn't come out, I thought, wanting this game. They came out and attacked, but they had that injury in the second minute that kind of took a blow to the defense, and 9 minutes later he was substituted Liechtenstein came in for him, which I think also took a little toll on Juve's defense. But Napoli really came out, and you could see it in the players that they really wanted this game. Let's open up for discussion. Raymond, what do you think about this Juve-Napoli game?
Yeah, well, it was definitely a big matchup for the title race in Serie A. Juve had extended themselves, getting up by 4 points, and most people thought, if they could just get a result, a draw in this game, that would pretty much seal the title. It was a pretty ugly game to watch. Juve pretty much sat back. Yeah, like you said, didn't really want the game, satisfied with just getting a draw. I don't know if the injury to Chiellini played a role in the defensive unit for Juve on that last header off a corner kick. So that could have played a role in that. So yeah, Juve didn't create many chances. Napoli had some chances, but not overwhelming too many either. It was pretty ugly, but a huge result for Napoli, and they're now only 1 point off of Juve for the title, and they also have an easier schedule coming up. So we'll have to see how the title race plays out.
Yeah, Serie A is definitely off to the races in that title race. Charles, do you have any comments on Serie A and the title race there?
Yeah, it's a two-horse race, Juventus against Napoli, 85 and 84 points. And then you got a 17-point gap between number 2 and number 3, Napoli and Roma and Lazio, who are tied with 67 points. And then Inter's only a point behind them in the Europa Cup spot. And then it dives off from there for Atalanta in the 6th spot for a European qualifier position. So it'll be interesting to see this race coming down to the wire with a few games left in the season.
Good action happening there in Serie A. We're going to kick it off and go switch it up to the Premier League, with Manchester City already clinching. The spots for Europe are almost pretty set. Chelsea's sitting behind Tottenham, wanting to clinch that Champions League spot, but it does not look that like Chelsea will be able to catch up, even though Spurs, like David said, Spurs might be able to lose some if their morale doesn't boost quickly. But I personally don't think that will affect Chelsea and them trying to get that Champions League spot. Ray, what do you think of the Champions League race in the Premier League?
Well, I think pretty much it's set and done. I don't think the inconsistency of Chelsea, I don't think they're going to make up the 5-point gap with only 3 matches to play. So I think they're solidified in that Europa League spot, and Tottenham will be heading to the Champions League again next year. Liverpool, Manchester United, there's a 3-point gap for second, third, but I mean that doesn't change anything. And as far as relegation goes as well, there's Southampton and Stoke City tied at 29 points, both 4 points behind Swansea City in 17th. So again, not likely that either of those will catch up, make up the difference with Swansea. Yeah, I think it's pretty set in stone in the EPL right now.
I think that it's super interesting what happened over the weekend, because Swansea played Man City, and of course everyone was expecting Man City to win, but also you were expecting Swansea to come out all guns blazing, trying to get that win to get up. And so I think it's just an absolute crusher for Swansea. Their morale has been incredible after the new manager, but I don't know if they can come back from this. So looking bad for Swansea. I'd actually also like to comment on the race for third. I don't know. Arsenal's not in the race for fourth. They're quote unquote Premier League prize, the fourth place. But it does seem interesting that Liverpool have a game in hand, or they don't. They've already played their games. So Tottenham has a game in hand, but I don't know if anyone really ever counts that game in hand. And so I don't really know what's going to happen to third and fourth. I agree that Chelsea has a hill to climb, but I think it's interesting that we have Liverpool just 3 points above Tottenham after Tottenham took that massive beating. Is Tottenham going to turn all their forces to getting third, or do they not even care anymore? Anyway.
Yeah, it's a really good point. We'll have to watch and see how Tottenham sets their lineups and really takes the Premier League in these next couple of games. Attention to Arsenal, and the surprising news this last week of Arsene Wenger deciding to leave Arsenal. Ray, what are your thoughts on Arsene leaving Arsenal?
Well, Wenger's definitely left a huge impact on the Arsenal club. I think many would say he overextended his stay. Most of his success happened in the beginning of his time there, with the undefeated season in 03 and 04, and definitely when he came in, he definitely changed the culture and made Arsenal relevant European powerhouse, for lack of a better term. They've kind of dove off. I think partly because I don't think Wenger's been able to change with the game, how the game's changed. We talked a little about the spending that teams do and stuff, and Wenger was more of he wanted to develop through the club and through youth and young players, and Arsenal didn't really spend huge amounts of money that you see nowadays, and Wenger really wasn't able to change with that. So, I mean, the fans have been, torn about this and have kind of wanted to see him go for a while now. He's kind of played his cards right at the right times to extend his stay, like winning the FA Cup and then getting a 2-year contract extension after that, even, probably when he shouldn't have. But he definitely left a legacy and an impact on the club that they're grateful for.
So first of all, when I jump in on this, of course I have to give deference to Arsene. He did a great job. So now giving deference, let's move on. Isn't it interesting that he had 1 year left on his contract and then that's when he left? That seems like the least Arsene thing ever. That's what confuses me as a pundit, is I'm looking at what he's doing, and this doesn't fit with the pattern that he set. Every year he just gets that extra year on the contract and just stays with it, and then now he has 2 years, and then this is when he leaves. I kind of wonder if there were some forces behind it, or maybe he just felt like he couldn't do it anymore because he wasn't getting fourth place. I'm not sure.
I'm for sure that there's some forces behind his departure. Definitely the fans playing in the role, but I think there's also some managerial forces behind his departure. Charles, you got any comments on Arsene Wenger, his departure?
Well, timing's timing. Whether it was contract, whether it was forces behind the scene, we're not going to know, and probably till after he leaves, and then people are going to start talking. It'll come out in the news media. But he left a great legacy there. He's one of my favorite managers of all time. He did a phenomenal job, undefeated season, like you were talking about. He pretty much won everything there is to win, except for maybe 1 or 2 trophies. So my hat's off to him. Now looking to the future, who's going to take his place?
Yeah, there are a lot of rumors of Wenger's replacement. One being Thierry Henry. Guys, do you think Thierry Henry is going to make it, Ray?
I mean, personally, no, I don't think so. Someone without any coaching, managing experience. Obviously, he is a big name for the club for what he did as a player, but that doesn't mean you're gonna, be a great coach. It would be a huge risk to take that. I think they're gonna need to take someone who's established as a manager to help them get back to where they desire to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, David, what do you think, Thierry Henry? Yes, no?
I think that they don't have the guts that Real Madrid did when they hired Zinedine Zidane to do it. They put him he's in the Red Bulls organization right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't think that's going to be enough experience. They look down on MLS. I have two dark horse candidates for you. The first one is one that people have mentioned a lot, and that would be El Cholo, Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid. And I think that some people have mentioned him. I don't think that he's a good fit stylistically, but maybe Arsenal could really use that spine that he gives teams.
Mm-hmm.
The other dark horse candidate, which I think is even funnier, is Brendan Rodgers. He's been talking himself up quite a bit, and let me tell you, from what I've heard, Arsenal does not have any game plan moving forward with transfer policy or with Madrid or with managers. So that means that maybe they'll just choose the next best person that's open, and if Brendan Rodgers is that person, maybe they'll have to take him.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Charles, what do you think, Thierry Henry?
No, like David said, he's with the Red Bull organization, and I don't think he has enough experience right now. I mean, he might be a fan favorite because as a player, what he did there. But as far as a realistic manager that could take him Champions League, and I don't know if he has that credentials at this time. I think he needs a little bit more experience. But there is one big name out there that still hasn't got a managerial job after getting fired from Bayern, and that's Carlo Ancelotti. So he's been mentioned. Thomas Tuchel has also been mentioned as a possible replacement, but there's been reports that he already signed with PSG in the news media, but nothing coming out of PSG, so we don't know if he's available or not. But Carlo Ancelotti could be there because he has Champions League experience. He knows how to win. He might be one that could be available for Arsenal.
No, just going off of what David said about Simeone, I think that would be great for Arsenal to try and put him back up there with the Man Cities and Manchester Uniteds of the world to compete for trophies. However, as David said as well, the style that the club likes to play at Arsenal, the free, open, counterattacking football, that's definitely not going to happen with Simeone. So it all depends on what Arsenal wants, if they're more committed to their style of play or if they want the successes and potential trophies and competing with the best.
I think that there are actually two things going on here. Well, let me just say it like this. This is the same situation as what happened to Manchester United after Ferguson left. Arsene Wenger's been there forever, and they messed up. They chose the wrong manager at the wrong time. It did not work out for them. I think that Arsenal's also going to mess up, but I think that Diego Simeone could be the right answer. If they chose him, I think that he could totally switch this club around. It would take a painful year or two, but I think that it would really add some strength to that Arsenal spine that they need, and he knows how to unite people in a way that Jose Mourinho only pretends to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a good argument. Yeah, Charles, what do you have?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different than Manchester United, though, because remember, Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson is big in that club, and he recommended his replacement. and it didn't work out. So this might be a little bit different.
Interesting prospects to that Arsenal job. Okay, then also the next question is, where will Wenger go? Ray, you got some prospect jobs for him?
I'm not sure. I've heard things about international jobs, if an attractive international job came, or there's been rumors of like PSG or Borussia Dortmund, but I've also heard rumors of him taking more of a office or a technical director type job back home in France with a unspecified club. So there hasn't been too much out there on his desires, but it's definitely a interesting topic to keep watching to see where Wenger ends up.
Yeah, definitely. David, where do you think Arsene's going?
Well, I think so many other managers have moved from one job to another and been very successful at another job. It's really hard to go from a job where you've been successful for a long time and then should take something new. So I agree with Ray. I think he's going to be at some sort of managerial position, probably in France, for a little while. A lot of people speculate that he's going to take some sort of not manager position, but higher up executive position in Arsenal. And I think that they need a complete clean split from him. Personal opinion. So I hope that he leaves and goes to France and is able to take on a new aspect in his career.
Yeah, I definitely think so, that Arsenal is trying to figuratively cut that vein from Arsene Wenger and totally just push off from him. So there's just a lot of talk from you know the fans. Well, the fans have been going on this whole season asking for Wenger's job to be cut, for him to get fired. But Charles, what do you think? Where do you think Wenger's going?
I kind of agree with Raymond and David. I think the only thing I've heard in the news media is possibly France, possibly the France national team as some kind of a director, or something like that, player personnel, something like that to help them out, to boost them and give them that type of experience that he's had over the years. Otherwise, there's nothing really out there at this time.
Yeah, so it sounds like consensus is that Arsene Wenger is not really the coach he was before, and that no one really wants him. So that'll be interesting to see where he goes from there. We're going to switch it up, running out of time a little bit. We're going to talk quickly about the Champions League and the upcoming games this week. We're going to talk first about the Bayern and Real Madrid game. Charles, from Bundesliga's perspective, coming into this game, are there any concerns for Bayern? Are there any injuries or any real concerns for Bayern coming into the Real Madrid first leg Champions League game?
Well, the first one is Vidal is out. So that's going to be a big miss in the defensive midfielder. His style of play, his aggressiveness, his ability to find the open player, mostly on defense though. Like I said, his aggressiveness and being able to shut down attacking players. So that's going to be a big mess. The plus side is Alaba is coming back. He's already in training, so they're preparing him to play for the Champions League, to be in there. So that's a great solidifying that left back position again.
Awesome.
A couple things coming out this week, some interviews. Heinkes came out and was saying the key to playing Real Madrid is psychological. And he's great at this, preparing his teams mentally. And we saw that in 2013 when he won the treble, playing Barcelona and Juve and these big teams, and how they just demolished him back then. So he's trying to get his club psychologically motivated for this game and prepared. Boateng came out and said the key to stopping Real Madrid is to shut down Cristiano Ronaldo. And he said how to do that is the back four have to be solidified. They have to be on the same page and shut him down and take care of business with the rest of the team. And even Robin came out and said, he believes Real Madrid is the favorites for this. He said doesn't mean Bayern doesn't think they can win, because they do, but in the media everybody thinks Real Madrid's the favorites. And he said this pretty much the same thing. He says they're a great attacking team. To stop them, Bayern need to work together at the back. And so that's going to be the key for Bayern, it sounds like, is working together at the back to stop that aggressiveness from Real Madrid.
Also staying on the back line and defense of Bayern, is Manuel Neuer going to be in this game, do you think, or is he still out?
No, he's back. He's training, but no, they're bringing him back slowly. I don't think he's going to play in any Champions League games. I mean, Heinkes mentioned in the media he doesn't know if he'll be back for the Champions League final if Bayern make it that far. But him not playing all season and Ulrich being very improved and doing the job necessary, I don't even see him coming back for that. That'd be a risky move, putting a cold Neuer in there compared to Ulreich, who's been steady and doing it the entire year.
Yeah, it's an interesting prospect in the back there for the Bayern's goalkeeper. David, what's the feeling around Madrid right now coming to the Bayern game?
Well, their schedule was very kind to them. Let's just say that. So the last game they played was on Wednesday against Athletic Bilbao, which is a good team, but it shouldn't be a super difficult challenge for them. And yet it took a Cristiano Ronaldo really late goal to tie it up. So I think that there's a sense of two things. One, in my mind, is kind of what we were talking about earlier about how maybe they're looking forward to that game, or maybe they're not able to handle La Liga and Champions League, or maybe they've just given up on La Liga. I don't know at this point. But the second thing is Zinedine Zidane's been kind of trying out a couple different formations. So against Athletic Bilbao, they did a 4-4-2. Generally, they've been running a 4-3-1-2 with Isco behind the strikers. But I don't think that Zinedine really knows their best formation. They did not get very much attacking prowess out of that 4-4-2 go against Athletic Bilbao. And so I don't think they're going to do that against Bayern. Just personal opinion.
Okay, do you think that is mainly because of Cristiano Ronaldo, that he's trying to find where he's best fit in the team, or what do you think?
I personally think it's because he doesn't truly trust Isco anymore. Isco's not doing what he did last year, so he sees Marco Asensio as the rising star, and Marco Asensio works better in a 4-4-2. And, of course, clearly it's Ronaldo who this whole year has been pulling them out of tight spots. So it's a combination of the two. Ronaldo is the savior of Real Madrid right now, and this is his shining year. He's older, but he's also more in the spotlight than ever. So I'm not exactly sure what his goal is, but Ronaldo, just like Charles said, is who Bayern needs to be afraid of and who has the greatest chance of changing the tie.
Raymond, what do you think of this semifinal first leg?
Well, I think on a European Champions League level, this is a pretty contested rivalry. This is like the New York Yankees against the Boston Red Sox, or something to that nature. On a European level. These teams have played each other more than any other two teams in the Champions League. And ironically, each have 11 wins and 2 draws. So this tie is going to obviously break that. Last year, they matched up in the quarterfinals. Cristiano Ronaldo scored 5 goals over the 2 legs. So you can definitely count that as the biggest reason why they moved on. So I think it's a classic. It's going to be highly contested and exciting to watch.
Quickly, David, thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what Charles said, because Mueller, I think it was, who said that Bayern needs to present a broad chest to Madrid or something like that. Basically, they wanted to present Madrid with the same difficulties that Juventus presented Madrid. And so I see Madrid as still having a weak spine in some ways, or maybe weakness at the back. And so personally, I'm worried about Madrid, and I see a lot of potential for Bayern to really take advantage of that weakness at the back.
Yeah, just going off of that, like we saw in the Juventus tie with Real Madrid, Real Madrid winning 3-0 on the road and then dropping the 3-1 result to Juve at home. So completely two different games, and it looked like completely two different teams. And like we talked about before, Sevilla gave Bayern a lot of trouble in that tie. So it's kind of I think there's a lot of unknown. It's not going to be the same as last year, I don't think. And so I'm excited for it.
You have any thoughts, Charles?
Yeah, the closer it gets, the more pumped up Bayern is getting for this game. I wouldn't call it they want revenge for last year. It's more they were disappointed in their results and how they played. Remember, Ancelotti was the coach last year. The players were already starting to shy away from him, not really respecting him, and I don't think it went the way Bayern wanted to. I kind of think Bayern was a better team last year than they are this year. They're a little bit younger, have some more inexperienced players, but they're psyched for this game. And Mueller even came out and said, "We want this. This is in our house, and we have to make a statement in our house before we go back to Madrid." So I think Bayern's going to try to come out flying and see if Madrid can hang with them, because they know it's going to be tough once they go down to Madrid for the second leg.
That second leg is going to be hard and interesting for both teams. Let's switch up and go to Liverpool versus Roma semifinal first leg game. Charles, what do you know what's the feeling around Roma coming into this game?
Well, Roma, they're excited. I mean, this is the first time since 27 years, I think 1983-84, where they were in the semifinals of the Champions League. So they're pumped for this, and they're primed. They just got off a big win against Barcelona to knock them out, and now they got Liverpool. Unsure if Roma's going to be able to do it 2 in a row with Klopp's style of play and pressure defense and his attacking finesse. But, hey, they did it against Barcelona. So right now they're riding a high, and everybody's pumped for this game.
Awesome. Let's go round clock. Thoughts on this game? Raymond, what do you got?
Yeah, I think that it'll be pretty interesting. You had Liverpool, who had a 2-0 lead over the weekend against West Brom, and then dropped that and ended up drawing. Klopp had some interesting comments about the refs and the pitch, and also today talking to or commenting on Mohamed Salah, telling him, this isn't a happy reunion or anything like that. So probably trying to remind his players that this is business and that they're trying to get to the final. And then with Roma, yeah, I think they're thrilled to be here, as Charles said. And so I definitely think Liverpool's the favorite, and it would be, again, a huge upset if Roma were to go through.
Go ahead, Charles. Do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, going off what Raymond just said about Roma being thrilled here, the other interesting fact, the 1983-84 Liverpool-Roma final. So this is a rematch. So this is going to be very interesting.
I also think that it's going to be interesting, mostly because I have absolutely no clue what's going to happen. I think Roma is the only team that defies my negative perception of teams being able to compete in 2 leagues. I know that they just played against Spal, I think it was, who is, I think, 3rd from the bottom. They're for sure probably going to be relegated, but it still seems like they're riding high after that win against Barcelona, then this last win. While on the other hand, Liverpool was not able to hold up their concentration, and they were too much focused on this upcoming Champions League game. So I think literally anything can happen. No defense, just goals upon goals.
That is an interesting thought. Both teams have a lot of goal-scoring players. Quickly going off that, Mohamed Salah has officially this week won the Player of the Year award for the Premier League. And he also commented that he wants to break that record in Premier League of 42 goals in a single year. We're going to break it off and go quickly. We don't have much time. Go quickly to Europa League action. First, we got Arsenal versus Atletico Madrid. Raymond, you got thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I think it's Atletico Madrid's competition to lose. I'd be shocked if any of the three other semifinalists won this. Arsenal, they're just too not in sync at the back in their defense. Atletico Madrid's always disciplined and makes you pay for your mistakes, and so I would expect them to move on to the final.
I see the same thing as well, but Atletico did have a rough weekend. They didn't play well in their game. And I actually want to make a quick comment. This is just my analysis, but I think that Nacho Monreal is the most important player in Arsenal right now. He has created more goals and helped out more with the offense, which is surprising considering that he was playing center back for a while in Arsenal than anyone else in Arsenal has done recently. So if there is a danger, I'd say it's coming from Nacho Monreal.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Raymond and David. I think this is probably Atletico's tie to lose, but I don't know. With Arsene Wenger, with the news, him going out, the players might rally because they want to send him out on a high and win a trophy, one last trophy before he leaves. So this could be, the little spark that does it for Arsenal. So it's very intriguing. Defense versus offense. We'll see who wins.
Okay, quickly going to the next semifinal. First leg, we got Marseille versus FC Red Bull Salzburg. Ray, your thoughts going into that game?
Well, I think reaching the final for either of these teams will be a, consolation prize. I don't know if either of these teams would have it to win the Europa League, but it should be entertaining. Salzburg had that incredible comeback against Lazio, and Marseille came back against Red Bull Leipzig also in the quarterfinal. So if I had to choose, I'd probably pick Marseille to go through onto the final against Atletico Madrid.
I kind of agree, but I really like Marseille's attacking line. You have Dimitri Payet, who was just so recently such a great force in the Premier League. And you also have an underrated striker who sometimes can come on with Kostas Mitroglou. So I really like Marseille's chances.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to agree. Marseille probably has the better chance. But I'm an underdog lover, so I'm hoping that Salzburg can get in there. But because they're 0-10 now in Champions League qualifying, and so now they've made it to the semifinals of the Europa Cup, so they're riding a high. I'm picking Marseille, but I'm hoping for Salzburg.
That's going to wrap it up for all the time we have tonight. Thank you for joining us for this Football Around the Clock podcast. I'm Derek Pyle, and thank you for all the analysts joining us today: Charles Pyle, David Kramer, and Raymond Pyle. And we'll see you all next time.